Big news of yesterday was that Houston got Milos Uzan back in the fold and in sequence lost Pop Isaacs. We sort of reacted in real time to that and asked ourselves the same question I think everyone in college basketball is asking themselves right now. Does this make Houston the number one team? I said I wanted to sleep on it before revealing my answer. I'll reveal my answer in this video. But we heard a lot of people around the sport, big names in college basketball, give their answer yesterday as they updated their way too early top 25s. And there were a lot of different answers. A lot of people still have Purdue at one. A lot of people have Houston at one. I think Gary Parrish even has St. John's at one for some reason. That was interesting. But one of the best in the business is Mr. John Rothstein. Shout out to Rothstein, by the way, new Twitter follower of Sleepers Media over the weekend. So, did you notice that Rothstein followed us?
I did, and I'm a little bit scared. And honestly, I'm glad I let it marinate a little bit because I thought it was an accident. He's still following the boys. All right, so that's massive.
Yeah, and not only that, he followed us after a video in which Riley Davis did a Rothstein impression. That's how that happened. So,
I mean,
uh,
isn't that how a lot of our relationships and things happen? How
yeah,
they
and
start?
now in perfect sleepers fashion, the first thing we do after someone follows us is make a video critiquing a take they had. So here's John Rothstein. He elaborated on an update to his way too early top 25 rankings. He has now put Purdue number one overall. And if you have followed Rothstein this offseason, as I know Purdue fans have, he has held strong that Houston is number one and Purdue is number two. But after Milos Uzan swaps in for Pop Isaacs, Rothstein moves Houston down and Purdue up to number one. Here's John Rothstein's own words on this. He put a Twitter video out yesterday. Everybody go follow John Rothstein. Obviously, he is one of the very best in the business. Here's Rothstein explaining his decision to put Purdue up to number one.
Now, I am somebody who, again, with Milos Uzan returning, believed that Houston would be the number one team to start next season with Uzan back at the point guard spot. I changed my tune on Tuesday morning, and here's why I'm going to tell you I changed my tune. I love Houston's program. I love Uzan. I think Joseph Tugler could be the National Defensive Player of the Year next season. I think that Emmanuel Sharp is one of the great players that we have in college basketball in terms of his productivity shooting the basketball. But Houston, who again is bringing in its best recruiting class yet under Kelvin Sampson, with losing Pop Isaacs, a veteran guard, becomes just a touch less experienced than I'd like them to be. Now, when I forecast rankings and I look at teams for a preseason ranking, I like to be in a scenario where I, for all intents and purposes, are going to forecast how that team would play today or on November 3rd on opening night. So I'm not saying that I'm picking Purdue right now to win the national championship in 2026. I am not saying that I'm not going to pick Houston to win the national title in 2026. But given the fact that Purdue is going to return four starters, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, CJ Cox, Trey Kaufman-Renn, from a team that took Houston to the wire in the Sweet 16, and given the fact that Purdue added Oscar Clough from South Dakota State, and is going to also get back Daniel Jacobson in the pivot, I like Purdue by a hair right now at the top of my rankings over Houston. And I firmly believe that two of those four returning players for Purdue, Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn, will be first-team All-Americans to start next season.
There's a lot of truths in that. There's also some things that don't make complete sense to me, but I want to sort of see if you and I can understand where Rossi's coming from. Is this a justified move in your opinion? And then I also want to give our own thoughts now that we've had a night to sleep on it.
Got it. So, like, first off, when I think you and I talk about this a lot. Sometimes people can, in this industry, or people that we speak about, can fall into like this groupthink type status, right? Where you have to do this, you have to put this team first. And look, the best part about this, in my opinion, is that Rothstein, he explained why he did it, which is what you need to do when you kind of make statements like this. The only I think I'll start with this because there was a couple things in there that I think struck a chord with me. he spoke about last year and how, the certain players on the team were the team that took Houston to the brink, right? Like that he used that as a point to big up Purdue, where, when he brought up the players coming back for Houston, he didn't mention the fact at all that that team was a team that just played the national championship. Milos Uzan was a starting PG for a team that was in the national championship. Tugler was a starter for a team that was played in the national championship. So was Emmanuel Sharp. And I just think there was a little bit too much of, looking over the fact that that team beat Purdue. Those players beat Purdue. Those players also beat the best team in the sport last year in Duke, in my opinion, and had every, honestly, I thought they had every chance to win the national championship game as well. They probably felt like they let that one slip away. So, that's the first part that I think kind of sticks out to me the most about it. And also, I think there's just way too much emphasis on the loss of Pop Isaacs, with all due respect. I understand the veteran point of that, but Pop Isaacs this will be his, fourth school, honestly, because he committed to Houston, never played for Houston, but like his fourth school and as many years. I think the veteran part of losing him is overblown a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, I mostly agree with you. First off, I think it is a perfectly reasonable, acceptable opinion to believe that Purdue is the number one team in the country for all of the reasons Rothstein said. They got two first team All Americans. They got the best point guard in the sport. They returned four starters, as he mentioned. I'm in. If you want to put Purdue number one, I have no problem with that. They've been my number one pretty much this entire time. Uh, what I don't want to say problem, but what I do disagree with is the idea that if you had Houston ahead of Purdue, like John Rothstein did, losing Pop Isaacs and returning Milos Uzan is enough to drop them. That doesn't make any sense. Swapping Pop Isaacs for Milos Uzan is an upgrade. Houston's going to get better. In Rothstein's words in the video explanation, he said, well, losing Pop Isaacs, they're just a little less experienced than I want them to be. Cart, you can't lose something you never had. They never had Pop Isaacs. That's not someone they lost. In fact, they returned more experience from this move, right? And
Yeah.
it was never, unless Rothstein believes that the plan was for them to have Milos Uzan and Pop Isaacs both in the fold, but that pretty clearly was not the plan here. Otherwise, Pop Isaacs would still be committed to Houston. He was a backup insurance plan for if Milos left. I don't think there was ever a world where you had both of those guys on the roster.
Mm.
So framing it sort of as a loss when Houston didn't have Milos Uzan when Rothstein had them number one, and now returns a better player who's better culturally, who was on the team that beat Purdue last year. I just don't think that's the time to make the switch. Also, I know that Purdue, by definition, returns four starters. One of those four starters will probably not be starting on this year's team. So, like, does Purdue really have more returning experience than Houston does? They're both going to have three guys that started on last year's team starting on next year's team. Purdue brings back Omer Mayer to take CJ Cox's spot, largely because he wasn't very good. Like him being the fourth returning starter doesn't mean all that much to me, right? Meanwhile, you talk about Purdue's new additions. Chris Sinak's the best freshman center in the country. And I get we like Oscar Clough and bringing Daniel Jacobson back too. These are two of the best front courts there are. But I don't know. I wouldn't downgrade Houston for being less experienced or a worse roster in any way than Purdue because they're missing a CJ Cox here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, yes, CJ Cox was the fourth starter on that team, but also he, like you said, he won't be starting this year. And I don't know, I just feel like you can't overlook the fact that, to me, Houston has the perfect combination of vets and young talent. Like Uzan is the player that I think brings that all together. And I think it's the only part that doesn't sit right with me is I truly think this is I don't know if it was supposed to be taken this way, But I feel like there's a little bit of disrespect to Milos in this situation
Yeah,
because Braden's the best PG in the sport. Milos is probably the second best PG in this sport.
probably fair.
Yeah, he's up there. He's gonna be
Yeah,
he has every ability to be there.
Donovan Dent, Bennett Sturts.
He's in that conversation.
He's in the combo.
He's
Yeah.
in the combo.
Yeah, that's
He's
fair.
in the combo, and you're going to war, and you want to win a game. Like that's I understand that maybe he's not the second best PG in the sport, but I'm trying to win. Like that's probably my second choice.
Can we do our throwback favorite game here?
Yeah,
Position by position.
yeah.
Milos Uzan, Braden Smith.
Braden Smith.
1 point Purdue. We saying Mayer starts at the two?
Yeah.
I wanted to pair Sharp and Fletcher, but I guess positionally it would make more sense to do Sharp and Mayer. We take Emmanuel Sharp.
Yeah.
So then that leaves you with Isaiah Harwell and Fletcher. 5-star, 6'6" freshman wing versus a senior that started in a national championship game, one of the best shooters in the country.
I love Harwell. But I think you have to you have to say Fletch, right?
Probably so.
Given what he's done, I feel like you got to show a little level of respect to that. But there's a world where Harwell's better than Fletch.
Yeah, that's a real toss up for me. If anything, that might be dead even, but for the sake of the exercise, I'll lean Fletcher. Two very
Yeah.
different ways to do it, similar impact, I think.
Yeah.
Uh Tugler TKR,
TKR. Yeah, TKR.
and then Chris Sinak, Oscar Clough. I would go Sinak.
I would go Stanek as well.
So 3-2 Purdue. Guess that leads to my final question here. Who's your number one team for next season?
Houston.
Even though we just positionally gave Purdue the advantage.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because I think there's when you talk about advantages there, one, I think matchups are a real thing, and also like the gap isn't as big as you think, and the players were going one way or the other on.
Okay. It's pretty damn close here.
It's pretty close, which is
Yeah.
why shout out to Rothstein. He's got Purdue by a hair right now.
I
Hair.
I just think it's a little bit funny to frame it the way he like oh there's a shift. If there is a shift, it should be shifting toward Houston here,
Uh,
right?
yes, yes, it should.
Like if you're going to change anything about the top of your rankings, it can't downgrade Houston after getting Uzan back. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it
So,
it does.
um,
Also, how many games did Purdue lose last season?
wasn't it double digits?
Like 24 and 12?
I'll pull it up. Yeah, 24 and 12.
24 and 12. Fourth in the Big Ten? Fifth in the Big Ten?
Something like that.
No banners.
But that's last year.
But
They made
last year.
upgrades.
But took Houston to the brink.
They did. They had them boys on the ropes.
Had them boys on the ropes after they got through High Point and Big Nice.
Two big wins.
Big ones.
Big wins. I did sleep on this, and I will officially reveal Houston is my number one team in the country right now. That is a change. I did the opposite of Rothstein. I think Uzan back shifts this in their direction. I just do. I think it answers every question I had with that team, which was largely how the hell is Pop Isaacs going to work in this program? Uzan takes so much pressure off of their freshmen. The last time, honestly, you're going to laugh at me, going back to my favorite team ever again. The last team that had three stud freshmen that were basically allowed to just be the fourth, fifth, and sixth guy on the team was my Trey Burke team cart. And that's what this Houston team reminds me of. When you have three freshmen that good, that are all pros, that can just be role players because you have such good vets, that is a title team. And we hope that Purdue becomes a title team with what they added. I know Houston is a title team. That's where I'm at after sleeping on this with Uzan back in the fold. So
100%.
give me Houston 1, give me Purdue 2. That's no slight at anybody. Some Purdue fans in the Discord were saying they really it means a lot to them to actually be the number one offseason team. Do you think it should?
It's, personally, I say no, but I can see why it matters to some.
Obviously, it's like a cool feat, but I don't think tangibly it matters all that much, you know?
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, all you're doing is increasing the pressure on yourself.
Yeah. And it matters because it means you're good. But being preseason number 2 also means you're really good, you know?
Yeah, true.
So after Purdue and Houston, huge gap to anybody else. Why do they have St. John's at 1 over at CBS Sports?
Um, just something different, something a little spunky, a little silly.
I mean, we love being a little spunky, a little silly, but that's a little too silly for my liking.
Yeah, there is such thing as too silly.
Are there any other teams you would entertain putting ahead of Houston or Purdue? There's
Um,
really not for me. Like UConn and Florida are in the mix, but I would fight anybody that those teams should not be ahead of Purdue.
no, I think those two, and then you have a gap.
Yeah. Big gap into like a big tier 2 of other
Just,
teams.
just a gap,
Medium gap,
a gap,
a big gap.
gap, like a Michael Strahan front two teeth.
That's a big gap.
That is a big gap.